I've been secretly living a double life for the past 10 years and my family has no idea. This is going to be long, and honestly, I don't even know where to start. I'm not even sure why I'm posting this. Maybe I just need to get it off my chest, hence the subreddit. I guess, LOL. Maybe I'm hoping someone out there will understand. Or maybe I'm just tired. Tired of the lies, the secrets, the constant fear of being discovered. And maybe, just maybe, I am looking for a way out even if I don't know it myself. I've seen stories like this on r/relationship advice, and I always thought, that'll never be me. For the past 10 years, I've been living a double life. And no, I'm not a secret agent or a superhero. I wish. My double life is, well, it's complicated, messy, and probably incredibly stupid if I'm being honest with myself, which I'm trying to be for once. To my family, I'm Emily Carter. Not my real name, obviously. A 38-year-old accountant living in a quiet suburban town. I'm married to Michael, a software engineer. We have 2 kids, a dog, a mortgage, and a minivan, the whole shebang. We're the picture of boring, middle-class normalcy. We go to church on Sundays, attend school plays, host barbecues, and worry about things like property taxes and college funds. We're average, and that's exactly how I want them to see me. Or at least, that's how I thought I wanted them to see me, for years. But there's another Emily, an Emily that only a handful of people know. An Emily that I created, carefully and deliberately, 10 years ago. This Emily is different. She's an artist, a painter to be specific, and not just a hobbyist painter. I'm good. I sell my work online, under the pseudonym Llama Vance. I've even had a few small gallery shows in a nearby city, which is terrifying and exhilarating all at once. I work primarily with oil paints, focusing on abstract landscapes, think Turner, but with more anxiety, I guess. It started innocently enough. I've always loved art. I used to paint when I was younger, in high school and college. I even considered majoring in art for about 5 minutes. But life happened. Or rather, fear happened. I got a practical degree, a stable job, got married, had kids. Art became a luxury, something I didn't have time for, something that wasn't responsible, something that real adults didn't do. At least not the kind of adults I was supposed to be. I remember Michael once joking, early in our marriage, that I should take up a less messy hobby, like knitting. He didn't mean anything by it, but it stuck with me. But the urge to create never went away. It simmered beneath the surface, a constant, quiet hum of longing. It was like this itch, this constant, nagging itch that I couldn't scratch. And the more I tried to ignore it, the worse it got. It was like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. Then, 10 years ago, I stumbled upon an online art community. It was a small, supportive group of artists, sharing their work, offering feedback, and encouraging each other. I started lurking, reading their posts, admiring their art, and, God, I was jealous. Jealous of their freedom, their creativity, their bravery to put themselves out there like that, to risk rejection, to dare to call themselves artists. It was terrifying and inspiring. I spent weeks just watching. And then, one day, I took a deep breath and posted one of my old paintings. Just a small, unassuming landscape. Something I'd painted in college, years ago. I almost didn't do it. I hovered over the post button for like 10 minutes, my heart pounding. I almost chickened out. But then, I did it. I hit post, and I waited. The response was overwhelming. People liked it. They praised my technique, my use of color, my sense of composition. They asked to see more. They called me talented, me, the accountant, the mom, the fraud. And that's when it started, the double life. I created a new online persona, a Llama Vance, a new email address, a new life. I started painting again, secretly in the evenings after the kids, Olivia and Noah, were in bed, after Michael was asleep or engrossed in some coding project. He gets in the zone, you know? I'd sneak down to the basement, to my makeshift studio, really just a corner with an easel and some art supplies I'd squirreled away, and I'd lose myself in the colors, the textures, the sheer joy of creating. It was like breathing again. It was exhilarating. It was terrifying. It was addictive. It was like I'd found this missing piece of myself, this part that I'd kept locked away for so long, and I couldn't let it go. I wouldn't let it go. At first, it was just a hobby, a secret escape, a way to reclaim a part of myself that I thought I'd lost. But then, something unexpected happened. People started buying my paintings, not just friends or family, who had no idea, of course, but strangers. People who saw my work online, on Ilara's Etsy shop and website, and were willing to pay real money for it. That's when it got serious. I had to figure out how to manage the money, how to ship the paintings, how to keep it all a secret. I opened a separate bank account under Illara Vance. I rented a small storage unit near my office to store my supplies and finished paintings. I became a master of deception, a liar, a fraud. The word keeps coming back to me. I even started following art blogs and forums just to keep up with what was happening in the real art world. Over the years, my secret life grew. I developed a following online. I connected with other artists, real artists who saw me, Illara, as one of them. I even started attending art events under my pseudonym, of course. I'd tell Michael I was going to a work conference or a girls' weekend with a fictional college friend, and I'd disappear for a few days, immersing myself in this other world. A world where I was free to be myself, to be creative, to be alive, to be Illara. I even met a few artists I really admired, people whose work I'd been following online for years. It was surreal. It's been exhausting, exhilarating, terrifying, wonderful. A constant tightrope walk between two worlds, a constant juggling act, keeping all the balls in the air, praying that none of them would drop, praying that Michael wouldn't notice. And I don't know how much longer I can keep it up. The guilt is eating me alive. I love Michael. I love Olivia and Noah, but I also love this other part of myself. This part that I've kept hidden for so long. This part that feels real. More real sometimes than the life I'm living with them, which is a terrible thing to admit, even to myself. I'm constantly afraid of being discovered, of Michael finding out, of my kids finding out, of my family finding out. The thought of their reactions, it keeps me up at night. It gives me nightmares. I see the disappointment in their eyes, the judgment, the betrayal. I imagine the questions, the accusations, the pity. But I also can't imagine giving it up. This secret life, Ilara's life, it's become a part of me. It's who I am, or at least it's who I also am. It's like I have this whole other world inside me, and if I try to suppress it, I'll suffocate. So, here I am, confessing to strangers on the internet, because I don't know who else to tell, because I don't know what else to do, because I'm drowning, and because I'm starting to think maybe, just maybe, I want to be found out. I'm living a lie, and I don't know how to stop, and maybe, just maybe, a part of me doesn't want to stop. I know this sounds like something straight out of a movie or one of those crazy Ada posts. Update one, I wasn't sure if I should update this, but I've been reading through all the comments and, well, it's helped. More than I thought it would. Just knowing that I'm not completely alone in this, that other people have secrets, that other people understand the struggle, it's made a difference. It's like taking a breath after being underwater for too long, or finding a crack of light in a dark room. A lot of you asked why I started the double life in the first place, why I didn't just tell Michael about my art. It's a fair question, and it's not a simple answer. It's a tangled mess of fear, insecurity, and I don't even know what. Years of pretending, I guess. Part of it was fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. I grew up in a very practical, very stable family. My parents were both accountants. They valued hard work, security, and practicality above all else. Art was frivolous, a hobby, something you did on the side, if you had time, after you'd taken care of all the important things. It wasn't a career. It wasn't respectable. It was something you did in your spare time, like knitting. I internalized that message. I told myself that art wasn't a real career, that I wasn't good enough to make a living at it, that I needed to be responsible, that I needed to be Emily Carter, the accountant, the wife, the mother, not Illara Vance, the artist, the dreamer, the fraud, that word again. And then there was Michael. He's a wonderful husband, a great father. He's supportive, loving, and kind. He's my best friend, but he's also practical, like my parents. He values stability, security, predictability. He likes routine. He likes knowing what to expect. He likes spreadsheets and budgets and 5-year plans. He's not spontaneous. He's not artistic. He's grounded, which is good, usually, but I was afraid that if I told him about my art, he wouldn't understand, that he'd think it was a waste of time, that he'd worry about the financial implications, that he'd disapprove, that he'd look at me differently, that he wouldn't love me anymore, that he'd think I was frivolous, like my parents did. I know, it sounds ridiculous, it sounds paranoid. He's never given me any reason to believe that he wouldn't be supportive. He's always encouraged my hobbies, my interests, as long as they were safe, practical hobbies, like gardening, or cooking, or scrapbooking. Don't judge. It was a phase. He even bought me a fancy stand mixer last Christmas because I mentioned I wanted to try baking sourdough. He tries. But the fear was there nonetheless. It was this deep-seated, irrational fear that I couldn't shake. This fear that if I showed him this part of myself, this messy, creative, unpredictable part of myself, he wouldn't accept it. He wouldn't accept me. He'd see me as different, as other. So I kept it a secret. And the secret grew, and grew, and grew, until it became this thing, this separate life that I was living, this separate identity that I had created, this monster. And now, it's gotten to the point where I don't even know how to tell him. How do you tell your husband after 10 years of marriage that you've been living a lie, that you've been keeping this huge part of yourself hidden from him, that you have this whole other life that he knows nothing about? How do you even start that conversation? Hey honey, remember that work conference I went to last month? Yeah, well, actually, some of you suggested that I should just come clean, that I should tell Michael everything. And maybe you're right. Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe that's the only thing I can do. But I'm terrified. Absolutely terrified. I feel like I'm standing at the edge of a cliff. I'm afraid of his reaction. I'm afraid of what he'll think of me. I'm afraid of losing him. I'm afraid of shattering the life we've built together. The perfectly normal life that I've so carefully constructed. The life that's a lie. And then there's the practical side of things. The financial side. My secret art income. It's not insignificant. It's actually become a substantial part of our household income. We rely on it. We've used it to pay for things like home repairs, vacations, and even Olivia and Noah's education funds. It's all mixed up in our finances under the guise of freelance accounting work that I supposedly do on the side. I even set up a separate business entity, Llama Advanced Designs, for tax purposes. It's elaborate and completely insane. If I tell Michael, I'll have to explain all of that. I'll have to explain where the money really came from, and I'll have to deal with the tax implications. It's a mess, a huge, complicated, tangled mess of lies and deception, and spreadsheets. So many spreadsheets. I feel like I'm trapped by my own lies, trapped by my own fear, trapped by this double life that I've created, trapped by myself. Update 2. This is getting insane, Reddit. I don't even know where to start. I feel like I'm living in a soap opera, or maybe a badly written reality TV show, or maybe a nightmare that I can't wake up from, or one of those stress dreams where you're back in high school and you forgot to wear pants. Except, worse. So last week, Michael almost discovered everything. It was the closest call I've had in 10 years. And it's made me realize that I can't keep living like this. I have to do something. I have to confess, or something, but I don't know what. I don't know how. I don't even know where to begin. Someone mentioned gaslighting in the comments, and honestly, that word keeps echoing in my head. Am I gaslighting myself? Here's what happened. I had a small art show in a city about 2 hours away. It was a group show, nothing major. Just a few local artists showcasing their work at this trendy little gallery downtown. But it was still a big deal for me. It was a validation of Alara, of this other life I'd created, of my art. I'd told Michael I was going to a work conference, a boring accounting seminar that I had to attend. He didn't question it. He never does. He trusts me, which of course makes me feel even worse. It's like the more he trusts me, the more I lie to him. It's a vicious cycle. The show was on a Saturday. I left early in the morning, telling Michael I'd be back late Sunday night. Everything was going according to plan, my usual routine, the lies falling from my lips like well-rehearsed lines. I even packed a suitcase with boring work clothes just in case. I'd thought of everything, or so I thought. The show was amazing. It was exhilarating to see my painting, Alara's painting, hanging on the walls, to see people admiring them, to talk to other artists, to feel seen. I even sold a few pieces to strangers, people who had no idea that Alara Vance was really Emily Carter, the suburban accountant mom, people who had no idea that I was living a lie. I felt alive, like I was finally being myself, my whole self, like I could breathe. But then, on Saturday evening, I got a text from Michael. Hey honey, just checking in. How's the conference going? Normal enough, right? Just a typical, loving husband checking in on his wife, except he'd included a picture. It was a picture of our living room, our perfectly normal, perfectly boring suburban living room, the one with the beige walls and the family photos and the brochure. And on the coffee table, clearly visible, was a brochure. A brochure for the art show, the one with my painting on the cover, the one with Llama Vance listed as one of the featured artists, the one I'd stupidly, carelessly, idiotically left on the kitchen counter. My heart stopped. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like the world was tilting on its axis, like I was going to throw up. I'd been so careful, so meticulous. I'd hidden all my art supplies, all my paintings, all my evidence in the storage unit. I'd scrubbed my computer history, deleted emails, covered my tracks. I'd created this elaborate, intricate web of lies, and it was all about to unravel because of a brochure. I stared at the picture, my mind racing. How could I explain this? What could I possibly say? How could I have been so stupid? I felt like such an idiot. I texted him back, trying to sound casual, trying to sound like Emily, not Alara. Conference is fine, boring but fine, lots of spreadsheets, you know how it is. What's that brochure? Looks colorful, he replied. No idea. Found it on the counter. Looks like some art thing. You interested in that? I could feel the panic rising in my chest. It was like a tidal wave, threatening to drown me. I had to think fast. I had to come up with a lie, another lie, to cover up all the other lies. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. Oh yeah, I texted back, my fingers trembling. I picked it up at a coffee shop the other day. Thought it might be interesting, but it's probably nothing. Just some local artists. You know me, always looking for inspiration for my scrapbooking. I added a laughing emoji, hoping to make it sound lighthearted, hoping to make it sound believable. I waited, holding my breath. Each second felt like an eternity. Each second felt like a countdown. He replied, okay, see you tomorrow. Love you. Love you. Those two words, those simple words, hit me like a punch to the gut, like a physical blow. He loved me, he trusted me, and I was lying to him about everything, about who I was, about what I did, about my life. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if he'd believed me, wondering if he was suspicious, wondering if this was the beginning of the end, wondering if he'd already Googled Llama Vance. When I got home on Sunday evening, the brochure was gone. Michael didn't mention it. He acted completely normal. He greeted me with a hug and a kiss, asked about my conference, and told me about his weekend with the kids. He was himself. He was normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew, that he was just waiting for me to confess, waiting for the truth to come out, waiting for the explosion. The past week has been torture. I've been jumping at every shadow, flinching at every phone call, every text message. I'm constantly on edge, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for the reckoning. I keep seeing that brochure in my mind's eye, sitting on the coffee table like a ticking time bomb. And then, yesterday, something happened that made me realize I can't keep living like this. Something that broke my heart and terrified me and, I don't know, confirmed everything. My daughter Olivia came home from school with a drawing. It was a picture of our family. Me, Michael, her brother Noah, and her. But there was something different about her picture. She'd drawn herself with bright, vibrant colors, surrounded by swirling patterns and fantastical creatures. It was beautiful, and it reminded me so much of my own art, of Ilara's art. It was like looking at a miniature version of one of my paintings. They showed it to me, beaming with pride. Look, Mommy, she said, her eyes shining. I drew us, and I drew myself as an artist. Like you, my heart sank. It felt like a stone in my stomach, like a lead weight. Like me? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to sound casual, trying not to panic, trying not to scream. Yeah, she said, nodding enthusiastic. You know, like when you go to your work conferences and you draw all those pretty pictures? You're an artist, Mommy, a secret artist. She whispered the last two words like it was some grand conspiracy. I froze. She knew. Somehow, she knew. Or at least, she thought she knew. She'd pieced together something from God knows where. Maybe she'd overheard me talking on the phone. Maybe she'd seen some of my supplies. Maybe she'd just sensed it. Kids are perceptive. More perceptive than we give them credit for. I quickly changed the subject, distracting her with a snack and a cartoon, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread, the feeling of impending doom, the feeling that my carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down around me, like a house of cards in a hurricane. How long before she says something to Michael? How long before my whole carefully constructed world comes crashing down? How long before my lies destroy everything? How long before he finds this post? I don't know what to do. I'm terrified, but I also know that I can't keep living this lie. I have to tell Michael. I have to. I owe him the truth. I owe myself the truth. I owe Olivia and Noah the truth. But how? And when? And what will happen when I do? Will he forgive me? Will he understand? Or will I lose everything? Will he look at me with disgust? I'm so scared, Reddit. So incredibly scared. And so alone. And so tired. I'm planning on talking to a close friend this weekend, the only person, except for you guys, who has a vague idea of what is going on. She kind of suspects something, I think. Maybe she can give me strength. Maybe she can give me courage. Maybe she can tell me what the hell to do, because I'm completely lost. Update 3. It's been a week since my last update and, well, a lot has happened. I talked to my friend Jessica, the real Jessica, not my artist, alter ego. Confusing, I know. I poured my heart out to her, told her everything. She listened, she didn't judge, and she gave me the kick in the pants I needed. She basically said, "Emily, you're living a soap opera. You need to write the ending before it writes itself, and not in a good way." She was right. So I decided to tell Michael. I planned it all out. I picked a Saturday night, after the kids were asleep. I made his favorite dinner, lasagna, the good kind with homemade sauce. I even bought a bottle of wine, which is something we rarely do. I wanted it to be calm, peaceful, a good environment for a potentially life-altering conversation. But, of course, nothing goes according to plan, does it? As we were sitting down to dinner, Michael got a phone call. It was his boss. Apparently, there was a major server outage at work, and he needed to go in, immediately. My heart sank. I almost told him then and there. I almost blurted it all out, right there in the kitchen, surrounded by half-eaten lasagna and the smell of garlic bread. But I didn't. I chickened out. He apologized, kissed me goodbye, and rushed out the door. I sat there staring at his empty plate, feeling numb, defeated, like the universe was conspiring against me. I cleaned up the kitchen, put the kids to bed, and waited. And waited, and waited. He didn't get home until after 3 a.m. I was still awake, of course. I hadn't slept a wink. He walked into the bedroom looking exhausted. He saw me sitting up in bed, and he just sighed. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice hoarse. "I know you wanted to talk." And that's when I lost it. I just broke. All the fear, all the guilt, all the lies. It all came pouring out. I told him everything about Alara, about the art, about the money, about the double life, about the brochure, about Olivia's drawing, about everything. I cried, I sobbed, I shook. I expected him to yell, to scream, I don't know, leave. But he didn't. He just listened. He sat there on the edge of the bed, listening to me, his expression unreadable. When I was finally done, when I'd run out of words, when I was just sitting there, a trembling, sobbing mess, he reached out and took my hand. "Emily," he said, his voice calm, I don't even know what to say." I braced myself. This was it. This was the moment where my life fell apart. "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I should have told you. I know I should have told you. I was so scared." He squeezed my hand. "I'm not angry," he said. "I'm confused and hurt, but I'm not angry." We talked for hours. Or rather, I talked, and he listened. He asked questions, clarifying things, trying to understand. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He just listened. It was like a dam had burst. All the words I'd kept bottled up for years came flooding out. He was surprisingly calm, more calm than I expected, more calm than I deserved. He admitted that he'd been suspicious, that he'd noticed things. The late nights, the work conferences, the unexplained income. He'd even Googled Ilara Vance after seeing the brochure. He'd seen my website. He'd seen my paintings. He'd seen my other life. But he hadn't said anything. He'd been waiting for me to tell him. He'd been hoping I would trust him enough to tell him. And that broke my heart all over again. We didn't resolve everything that night. We couldn't. It was too much, too complicated. But we started. We started to untangle the mess I'd created. He asked me why I'd kept it a secret, why I hadn't trusted him. And I told him. I told him about my parents, about their expectations, about my fear of failure, about my fear of him. He listened, and then he said something that surprised me. I get it, he said. I mean, I don't get it, but I understand. You were afraid, and I haven't always been the most supportive person, have I? He was referring to the messy hobby comment from years ago, the one I'd mentioned in my first post, the one I'd thought he'd forgotten. I was an idiot, he said, shaking his head. I didn't realize how much that hurt you. I didn't realize how much art meant to you. We talked about the practicalities, the money, the taxes, the storage unit, the everything. He wasn't thrilled about the lies, obviously, but he understood. He said he needed time to process everything, but that he wasn't going anywhere. He even said he was proud of me, proud of Alara, proud of my art. That's when I really cried. Update 4. It's been a few months since my last update. Things are better. Not perfect, but better. Michael and I have been in couples counseling. It's been hard, really hard. We've had to confront a lot of issues, not just about the double life, but about our communication, our expectations, our everything. It turns out Michael had been feeling neglected. He'd felt like I was pulling away from him, emotionally, for years. He just didn't know why. He'd thought it was him, that he wasn't enough. And I had been so focused on my secret, on protecting my double life, that I hadn't seen what was happening to him, to us. We're working on it. We're talking, really talking, for the first time in a long time. I've also told my kids, well, sort of. I told them that Mommy is an artist and that I sometimes sell my paintings. I didn't tell them about the pseudonym or the secret life or any of the drama. They're too young to understand all of that, but they know that Mommy paints, and they think it's cool. Olivia even asked me to teach her how to paint. We've been spending time together in my, no longer secret, basement studio, painting together. It's amazing. As for Alara Vance, she's still around, but things are changing. I'm slowly starting to integrate my two lives. I've started using my real name on some of my social media accounts. I've even told a few of my close friends and family members about my art. It's scary, terrifying actually, but it's also liberating. I feel like I can finally breathe, like I don't have to hide anymore. Michael has been incredibly supportive. He's even helped me set up a proper studio in our spare bedroom. He says he wants to see me paint. He wants to be a part of that part of my life. We went to an art opening together a few weeks ago. It was surreal to be there with Michael as Emily, not Alara, to introduce him to my artist friends, to see him looking at my paintings with pride in his eyes. He even bought one, a small landscape. He said he wanted to have a piece of Alara in our home. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if my family will ever fully understand or accept my double life. I don't know if Michael and I will be able to completely repair the damage I've caused. But I'm hopeful. For the first time in a long time, I'm hopeful. I'm still scared, but I'm also excited. Excited to see what happens next. Excited to be me. All of me. Emily and Alara. I'm not sure if this is the end of the story. Maybe there will be more updates. Maybe not. But for now, I'm okay. We're okay. And that's enough. More than enough. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Thanks for everything. You have no idea how much this has helped. Update 5. Final update. It's been a year. A full year since I posted that first frantic, terrified confession. A year since my double life came crashing down around me. A year since I almost lost everything. And a year since I started to rebuild. I wanted to give one final update to tie up loose ends and to, offer some closure. To myself, mostly. First, the big news. I'm officially out as Alara Vance. I did a big reveal on social media explaining everything. Well, not everything, but the gist of it. I was terrified, of course. I thought I'd lose followers, that people would judge me, that I'd be exposed. I was prepared for the worst. But the opposite happened. I was flooded with messages of support. People were understanding, they were kind, they were amazing. I even gained more followers. It was like a weight had been lifted. A huge, suffocating weight. I could finally be myself, fully and openly. It was like exhaling after holding my breath for 10 years. My family, they're still adjusting. My parents were confused at first. They didn't really understand why I'd kept it a secret for so long. But they're trying. They've even come to a few of my art shows. My mom bought one of my paintings. It's hanging in their living room, right next to the family photos. It's surreal. It's healing. Michael, he's been incredible. He's my biggest supporter. He's even started taking an art appreciation class at the local community college. He says he wants to understand my world better. He's trying, and that's all I can ask for. We're still in therapy, but it is getting better. We are getting better. Stronger, I would say. And the kids? They're thriving. Olivia is still painting, and she's actually getting pretty good. She calls herself Olivia Vance now, which, well, it melts my heart. Noah is more interested in building Legos, but he likes to come to the studio and watch me work. He says it's magical, and sometimes it really is. As for me, I'm happy, truly happy. For the first time in a long time, I'm still painting, I'm still creating, but I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not living a lie. I'm just me, Emily, and Alara. One person. Finally. I quit my accounting job. It was terrifying, but also liberating. Like shedding a skin that no longer fits. I'm now a full-time artist. It's not always easy. There are ups and downs. There are good months and bad months. But it's mine. It's what I love. It's what I was meant to do. I even had a solo show last month. A real, proper solo show. At a real, proper gallery. The Two Sides of Emily, it was called. And Michael was there, beaming with pride. He even gave a speech. He told everyone how proud he was of me, of us, of the journey we'd been on. I cried, of course. Happy tears. This time, tears of relief, tears of gratitude. So that's it. That's the end of the story. Or maybe it's just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I'm finally whole. Thank you, Reddit. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything. You saved me. You really did. You gave me the courage to be me. I'm going to go paint now. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.